So as you probably know, we've been growing these calendula to make calendula balm, and we've harvested plenty of heads, and they're all indoors and they're drying out nicely, and we're getting very close to the next step in making that. In the meantime, we're just enjoying the beauty of all these flowers. But as most of you probably know, if you deadhead these flowers, you can perpetuate more heads, and that's what I'm going to do next. With these calendula, they seed really easily, so I'm going to let a number of these heads just brown up and turn to seed, and then we'll keep as many of these as we want and probably share a few around as well. If there's one flower that really seeds successfully and very easily, it's calendula. Well, there's still enough seed on there to supply a small seed company, I think, but we've taken a lot of the dead heads off, and these certainly would seed, but there's just ample there. There would be literally hundreds of thousands of seed. So we're going to take this away, and my next crop is coming from these plants behind me, and these rhubarb were planted just this year, and it's unbelievable how well they've grown. So we're going to have a harvest off of those. I'm going to take the vast majority of the stems because it isn't going to be long before these start to wilt, and I want to get them peeled and into the freezer. Now these rhubarb are early varieties, but because I've moved them, I think I probably impacted on them quite a lot, and they've just come to fruition now. And if we get down in here and have a look at these stems, they're just magnificent, and there's new growth coming through, and I think I'm going to harvest the larger of the stems and allow this smaller growth to develop, and hopefully that'll be a crop a bit later on. Well, this might be a bit ambitious, but I'm thinking I'm going to need something fairly substantial to hold all this rhubarb. We'll see if I can fill this. So that was a lot more rhubarb than I ever imagined, and there's still a lot to crop, but this is going to be enough for us to get going with. And out of interest, this was the longest and this was the thickest. Good times. That's the fruit garden pretty much up together now. The rhubarb, well cropped, but I've left some pretty healthy plants, and I'm pretty confident that the new shoots on these will start to grow through and make another crop for a bit later on. I've got some deadheading to do on the cosmos. I'm going to save this seed because it's such an attractive plant. All the gooseberries have been weeded and the blackcurrants, so they're in a good place. This one's had a bit of a break, so that's coming off. It's the effect of pruning naturally. And I've weeded these beds where the soil is still very easy to weed. And the same go with these marigolds, which have been a fantastic show, and I need to keep deadheading so that we keep the show of flowers coming. And the marigolds I've deadheaded, they're past their best really, but there's still going to be a long show of flowers for quite some time. And this rhubarb is just too much for me to tackle at the moment, so that's going to be on my list for a bit later on, and we'll get another crop of that and into the freezer. The poppies are just continuous. They only flower for a day, but they're beautiful, and we're still getting a lot of blossoms, so fantastic. Bees are in there, they love it. So I'm just going to do a small amount of weeding in the flower bed. These sweet peas have been brilliant. We've had so many bunches of flowers going into the house and they smell fantastic, but they're certainly getting past their best now. Oh, we've got a baby robin just come to say hello to us. Lives in the pear tree now. And I'm going to let these pods form now, and they'll be the seed that I'll keep for next year. But I noticed this morning that one of those sweet pea plants has died, so I'm just going to pull him out. And get him in the compost. Keep it looking as neat as I can. Comes out relatively easy. One more. And there we go. And then I can get to the weed. Now these lavender are the ones that I grew from seed. And this year they've just established themselves in the ground. And I haven't had any blossom from them or any blooms. But I'm hoping that next year they'll really start to get to maturity and we'll see some really nice fragrant flowers on them. And they're nice and low growing at the moment, a nice bushy habit, and I'm hopeful that they'll get larger and we'll have some really nice plants. Now I'd say I've almost neglected these beans. You can see the compost that I put in there obviously has quite a lot of stinging nettles in it. So I'm going to spend some time this morning just removing that weed and making sure that all the goodness in this compost gets to go into the beans rather than the weeds. And it really doesn't take very long when the compost is this friable, and you can see it's still really good quality. And the beans have enjoyed it. They certainly haven't worried about the fact that it's not too dense a medium. And I'm going to just spend some time tying up a few of these as well, because in the wind that we've had recently, some of the smaller plants a bit further up have suffered, and I'm going to need to tie them up to make most of the crop. But you look at a bed like this and you think, oh my goodness, it's covered in weed. And the reality is, it doesn't take more than a few minutes just to get back on top of it. If you put some effort into it, you reap the rewards And that really isn't a very big effort just to get that back under control. And we've got some nice beans in here. This is the Gigantes, they've got a red tinge to them, and we're getting close to the point where I'm going to cook a few of them and just see what the flavours are like and what I want to keep. And then this year pretty much the rest of the crop is going to be used for saving seed for next year, and I'll save the seed of the ones that I enjoy the most and grow again in the next spring summer season. Well, I'm certainly learning about growing these beans. These definitely need tying up as they grow up those canes. They're not strong enough stems to support themselves in reality. So that's a learn. Need to tie these up as they grow. And there's a fair old crop on these, and I'm just going to let all the leaves stand up and let the bush reshape itself naturally in the light for a few days, and then we'll look at cropping them. And these bindweeds really work their way into the bushes as well, so we need to keep them at bay. And I wanted to show you these two. I don't know where this topsoil came from. It was given to me by a neighbouring plot holder and I was very grateful for it. But we've got some self-sown tomatoes in here which I'm going to take out because they won't come to anything. But really amazing how tomato seed will just grow anywhere. And these Gigantes, at the moment I'm just going to let them trail unless they become a real problem. I think I might get a few more beans off these trailing edges, so we'll see how we go. But we've got some reasonable sized beans in here now, and I'm looking forward to tasting those. Well, it was my plan today to get onto the plot before the sun came up and really started to scorch, because yesterday it was incredibly hot, and it's breaking through the clouds now, and it's going to be my last job of the day to get a few of these potatoes out. And we've had great crops out of these Charlotte potatoes grown in pots, and this is probably as much as I've let any of them die back, so it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of one of these pots now. Now the pots have really dried out, but the potatoes have got no blight or any disfiguration of the skins whatsoever, so it's really good to see. And this compost is going straight back into my recycled compost regime, and this compost was recycled itself, and as you can see, as long as it's fed, it's not doing anything derogatory to growing potatoes. And they just keep coming. I think this year has been the best year of potatoes I've had. Now these pots, or this pot method, can very often yield a good crop, but the size of them this year and the number has been exceptional. And there we are, a nice crop of good sized Charlotte potatoes. And I'm going to take one more of these pots and then we'll be taking them home. That's it for today. Pretty good crop. Plenty of work to do in the kitchen this morning with the rhubarb and get that into the freezer. And look at those squash. Squash and pumpkins. That's how I like to see them taking over. And there'll be plenty of nice pumpkins and squash in there to be had. Let's just have a look in here. Ooh, look at that fella. Won't be long now. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, and if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day. Diolch yn fawr.